Hi, this is Katrina from Katrina K Creations. The image of the skirt that you see here is from Nordstrom's website, and it's a skirt that they no longer carry. But I like the skirt so much that I decided I wanted to copy it. So today in this video, I'm going to show you how to make the pattern for this pleated skirt. The tools you're going to need are a ruler, and the longer the ruler is, the better, because you're going to be doing the pleats across the full width of your skirt. But if all you have is the 18-inch ruler, that's fine. Scissors, a pencil, a tracing wheel, and the ones with the prongs is the best one for this project. Some straight pins and pattern weights. So this is my front skirt piece. I'm going to use my skirt front piece as a template. And as you can see, I've drawn the lines where I actually want the pleats to go. And I've also made sure that I've drawn my center front line, because this we're going to use as a guideline when we're creating our pleats. Before you draw your placement lines, make sure you have altered your pattern and that it fits the way you want it to fit. Because my pleats are at an angle, I have to use my whole front piece because the design is asymmetrical. Now this is my paper that I'm going to use to create my piece, and what I've done is I've drawn a line down the center of my paper, and I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to place my skirt template on my paper, lining up the center front of my skirt with the center line that I've drawn on the paper. And notice I've also placed my pattern piece at the very top of the paper, because remember, I'm going to be adding pleats, so I'm going to need this entire length of my paper. Now I want to mark my first pleat line. That indicates where my first pleat is going to go. So I'm going to mark my side seam. So I've marked the line placement on my paper on each side. Now as a guideline, I'm going to use this tracing wheel with the prongs to mark a couple of other places of my line, just to make sure that it's in the right place. Remember, with a full-size piece, it's going to be a lot wider than this, so you just want to have just an extra guideline so you know exactly where to draw your line. What that does is it perforates my paper, so when I remove the pattern piece, I can see where the line goes. So I removed my pattern piece. I've marked where my line placement is, and so I'm just going to go ahead and draw the line, and you want to make sure you extend it well past your original marks at the side seam. So now my line is drawn in. I've decided that I want my finished pleat to be 3/4 of an inch wide, and that measurement is up to you. So I'm going to draw a line 3/4 of an inch from this pleat placement line. So I've drawn a line 3/4 of an inch away from my original line. If I want my finished pleat to be 3/4 of an inch wide, then that means that I have to double that amount. So I have to multiply 3/4 times 2, and that will give me 1.5 inches. So I'm going to draw another line 3/4 of an inch away from the line I just drew. What I've just done is drawn my first pleat. So I'm going to fold my first line to my last line. You can also use this tracing wheel to trace your line so that it puts a little bit of perforation in it, and it makes it a little easier to actually fold exactly on that line. So now I've folded out my pleat. Remember, these were the original lines that I drew, and now I've folded in my pleat. When you fold your pleat, of course, your original center front line, which is your line at the top, is not going to match the rest of your line. That's because you folded on a diagonal, which I forgot. So don't be alarmed by that. That's just the way it is. It's not going to affect the fit of your piece or make your pattern piece incorrect. This is the true center front. So now that I've folded my piece, I'm going to then take my template and place it back on top of this paper, and I'm going to match the center front. And I'm also going to match my pleat placement line. Now that I have my pattern piece back in place, now I'm going to mark the next pleat. So I've marked my next pleat. So now I have 2 of my pleats marked. So I just have 3 more to go. And you're going to do the same process down the length of your skirt. And again, don't panic if these lines don't match your original center front line. Just remember, this is your true center front line. And when you place your template back on your paper, just remember, you're going to line up your center front on your skirt piece with the center line at the top of your paper, and you're going to line up the pleat placement lines with your actual pleats. And then you can mark your 3rd pleat and continue on down to your 5th pleat. Now I have all of my pleats drawn in and folded, and I'm almost done with my pattern piece. So I've closed all the pleats, and I'm replacing my template on top of the pleats. Now I've lined up the line that I drew at the top of my paper with the center front line of my skirt template. And I've also lined up all of the placement lines with the actual pleats. And then I've also lined up the line on the bottom with the center front of my pattern piece. Now I'm going to pin my template to my pleated paper, and I'm going to cut my skirt piece out. Now notice I have included my seam allowance. If you don't have seam allowance on your skirt template, add it now. It'll be much simpler to add it to this template than it will to this pleated piece. Now my pattern piece is pinned down and I'm ready to cut. Once your pattern piece is cut out, make sure you mark any darts or any other markings that you're going to need to sew your skirt together. You don't have to mark your placement lines because you already have your pleats. Once you've transferred all your markings, then you can remove the template. And here is the finished pattern piece. Seam allowance is included. You can draw in your seam allowance if you want. You can draw in your hem allowance. I've already drawn in my darts. And make sure you draw in any other markings that you need for actually sewing the piece. You're not doing any pleats in the back, so your back piece would remain the same. So when your pattern is completed and you fold the pleats of your skirt, it's going to look like this. Now again, that center line, it's going all over the place, but that's okay. The most important lines are this one and this one. Forget about all of these lines in the center. And remember, this is a half scale pattern. So here's the actual muslin of my skirt. My pleats are 1.5 inch finished. 1.5 inch this side and 1.5 inch this side. It's a little too big in the waist, so I need to take in my pattern just a little bit. But as far as the pleats go, I love the way they fell. I love the way they look. I love the size of them, so that's not going to change. I did a 1.5 inch hem. It's a little longer than I thought it was going to be, so I'm going to shorten it without interfering with my bottom pleat here. And again, the back has no pleats. I added a little fullness to my skirt. You can use any skirt pattern you want. You can use a straight skirt pattern, an A-line, or one with a little bit of fullness. I wouldn't use one that has too much fullness. In my next video, I'm going to show you how to sew the skirt from start to finish. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to my channel by clicking that bright yellow button, because there's more to come. Did you like this video? I hope you did, and you can let me know by giving it a thumbs up. If you have a question or comment, leave it down below, and thanks for watching.